7th. So that's why we didn't include it in this agenda, but only these two items that we felt it was quite urgent. So that's why we're only dealing with this. But do you feel that you have got information that you want to share with the council?
Yes, I do.
So my apologies, Mayor, MM.
Again, I think we corrected this at the prelim. The special council meeting that was arranged, that must be continued, is a separate meeting. This is a special council meeting for these two items. You can't, after having adopted the agenda, in the middle of the meeting, put in new items. So the special council meeting for these two items must conclude, and then you resume the meeting that was stopped. Thank you.
Thank you for the advice, Mayor. So there you've got your answer. So councillors, can we go
Speaker,
to
Let us just make sure of the correctness of that information, because the notice of this meeting is a special council meeting for the items that we have in front of us. So there was another notice that speaks about the continuation. I just want to get that right, because if that notice is not the correct notice, you may not have the meeting. That is the difference.
Mayor, whose mic is on, MM?
Speaker, that is why we issued two notices. One notice is for the continuation of the special council meeting. One notice is for the special council meeting to consider these two items.
Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Speaker and colleagues. I'm not going to let the roof come down. I take it as it is in front of us. Thank you.
Alderman Gericke, you were too slow to press the button.
Okay, it's fine. I am satisfied as long as we clarify this on the record. That is fine. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, it's just also in your agenda. It doesn't talk of anything else. It only goes the disclosure of interest, and then it also goes to the matters at hand. So there's nothing else that talks about anything else. So it should be as such.
Thank
That's
you.
how we have adopted this agenda.
Thank you very much. Let's not prolong any further. Point now, item number 5. CFO, are you going to take us through this and tell us why this item is back on the agenda after we've already made a decision previously? CFO?
Thank you, Speaker, and good morning, Executive Mayor, Deputy Mayor, councillors, and colleagues. Yes, Speaker, it is true that this matter of the supply chain policy has been before council already a few times this year. But in summary, what happened is that on the 16th of February, there was a constitutional court outcome that says the preferential procurement regulations are invalid. So towards the end of March, this council then adopted its supply chain and preferential procurement policies to take out those invalid regulations. That was done after consultation with national and provincial spheres of government, and then province specifically issued a circular that said, adjust your policies in this manner to take out the preferential procurement regulations. So we did that in March. There was still a measure of uncertainty at the time, and therefore National Treasury and the Minister of Finance actually approached the Constitutional Court for a clarification on a suspension period that a prior court also announced on this matter. So then on the 30th of May, the Constitutional Court issued its clarification that the Minister of Finance requested. It said that, yes, the preferential procurement regulations of 2017 are indeed invalid, but there was a suspension period for the validity thereof. And the Constitutional Court clarified to say that the validity remains in place for a period of 12 months. So then that was issued on the 30th of May. On the same date, National Treasury then issued a media release again to say that municipalities who has exemptions from the regulations or adopted interim policies which this council did on the 29th of March. All of that then lapses again on the 30th of May. We must now bring back the preferential procurement regulations, and they will stay in place until the suspension period passes, which is early next year. So the purpose of this item to council is now to again revert back to the version of the policies prior to its amendment in March. We do not have to rescind the decision, i.e. there was an interim period validly, being the 29th of March when you amended the policy up until the 30th of May. So the point of this item is then for council to resolve again to revert back to the policies which contains the regulations included in the preferential procurement regulations of 2017. Speaker, that is the summary of this item, and therefore the recommendations on page 6 reads: 1, to adopt the GRDM supply chain management policy and preferential procurement policy attached as Annex A and B, effective the 30th of May 2020. And those annexures then, as set out in the item, is the versions that we had in place prior to amending it in March, on the 29th of March 2022. And the other recommendations is just noting the outcome of the judgment itself, the National Treasury's media release saying that we must do what council is today asked to do, and then fourthly, the Provincial Treasury Circular, which basically just reiterates what National Treasury has said in that media release on the 30th of May. Thank you, Speaker.
Councillors, are there any questions on this item? Alderman De Vries.
Speaker, in the report, it's stated in, I think it's up there, it's 4, that all procurement advertised before 30th of May must be dealt with in terms of the exemption in the policy that we took in place. Then there's a 5 also that states an organ of state may however decide to withdraw such a request for quotation or tender, and then request a new quotation in terms of the regulations that we adopt now. So now our recommendation is not alluded to anything to that. So are we saying that those that were before the 30th May will continue in terms of the old ones, and anything new will then be dealt with in the current one? That's the clarification. Because afterwards it can be interpreted differently, and we will then fight with the administration in terms of what they've done.
Can CFO answer first, please?
Yes, Speaker. So I think that is a valid question to say, do we keep with what we have done since 29th of March up until the 30th of May? And that is clarified in the Provincial Treasury Circular to say that if you advertise in accordance with your interim policy, you can finish those awards in accordance with that policy. So we are not rescinding any advertisement we did in that period. And it's also a very limited amount of tenders that are affected by this, in essence, because it is really only local content, that regulation that was removed for 2 months, which we are now putting back. But the Provincial Treasury has clarified to say that even that is why National Treasury gives the option, you might or you may. It's just that because it's clear that the interim policies are valid, the recommendation is not to start over with any procurement, because obviously that would service delivery back, etc. But the point then is to say that all the procurements that had started and were advertised under the interim policy will just be concluded. This decision says that all procurement starting from the 30th of May will again be done under the old policy.
Taka?
Yeah, Speaker, let me just ask, for the period under discussion here, Mr. CFO, are there any pending tenders? In other words, people that have tendered on specific tenders at the time, according to that criteria, still pending to be awarded? If so, what will be the approach be? Are we legally bound, or does this correction in the Constitutional Court undo it all, or do we stand a chance to be challenged by those people if it's the case?
CFO?
Thank you, Speaker. Alderman Gericke, if we were to conclude any tender that is still pending in line with the policy that was, when it was advertised under, then the understanding from the National Treasury media release is that there is no risk of you being in fault because there was an interim policy that you've acted upon and you can continue you will see there on page 127, the third bullet, for instance. If I can just take you there, it is halfway down. It says therefore the Constitutional Court, and then on one it says the 2017 regulations are they in their entirety valid, and then 2, from today all exemptions granted with a period of uncertainty following the judgment lapse, and then 3, which is the one I want to highlight, is from today all new quotations must be registered and tenders advertised under the reverted position. So if you have advertised under the old policy, you can continue with that award.
With all respect, it doesn't make sense because the case has been taken to the Constitutional Court exactly because of some disputes. The Constitutional Court has now corrected and they've issued a judgment. I can't think that the Constitutional Court will agree to sort of reverse in inverted commas and say you can still proceed on the old order, although we've established a new order for the way forward. I mean, I'm not legally qualified, but I don't understand because in terms of those, let's say pending tenders, those that the people that tendered during that time, they have then, applied or tendered on a faulty basis, so to speak, or on a flawed policy. How is it then that that can still be in place? I mean, it's a logical question.
Yes.
Speaker, I do agree with Alderman Gericke that it is, I think the big question mark on everything that has been done since the 16th of February is what is the AG's view? Because they are silent. They have been silent even since the 16th of February. So the question remains, do the AG's legal guys agree with what we were advised to do from national and provincial side in March? And are they agreeing with this on what we are doing again based on advice from national and provincial government? So I think it would be irresponsible of me to say there's no risk of what you are raising to realize. But our response to that is that the combination of these printed, published circulars surely is done in consultation with the best legal minds National Treasury has access to. And for us to go against this would be more risky than to say we'll stick with a national guidance and apply it strictly like that. Because what other defense would we have if the AG would come to say we don't agree with what he stated? And again, maybe to say that Councillor De Vries is correct to say that we have the option to start certain procurements over, but it starts with to say tenders advertised before today must be dealt with in terms of the internal procurement interim policy, which is what we are proposing to council, because otherwise these matters of contracts that have been awarded, there's many other legal processes that we will have to start if we go against what National Treasury is proposing in the first place. Important to say that our largest tender, which is the landfill side, is again done under the new since the 30th of May. So the biggest procurement risk to council would be done under clear validity of the regulations that are in place. And that is also the purpose for wanting an urgent item so that that procurement can actually go under the new amended clarification.
Councillor Chawa?
Thank you, Speaker. I think you have kind of answered me. Because I wanted to know what are the implications if we say we are implementing what the judgment has been given, and in terms of timeframes of whatever procurements that were in place. But the trick side of it is that we can still be legally be held responsible to say there was a judgment. So I don't know where we can find the middle ground. Because I don't know, at the same time, you also cannot shortcut your procurement processes. So we are finding ourselves in a very difficult space. But the right thing to do, it should be that we implement the court judgment. That should be the right thing to do. But I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is that for the tenders that they will linger with, what about those tenders? Yes, going forward, I agree. But what about those that are lingering? What do we do with them?
Maya, was that a question, the last part to Jan Willem? Councillor Java, the last part of your statement. Maya, and then Jan Willem.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm just looking at recommendation 2. Council take note of the Constitutional Court judgment and it whatever. Should that not cover us? And when the guys do the adjudication, always bear the court case in mind. So that should cover us.
Jan Willem?
Yes, Speaker, I think what Councillor Java is stating is that, there is an uncertain element. And what I found is if you ask a legal opinion of X, you might get the answer. You ask it of Y, you might get a different answer. So I agree with you that because I think where we're going is that if the AG was to come and to say that not even the tenderers themselves that Alderman Gerik is referring to, but if the AG comes to say that we've noted all the guidance that you've received, but we are of a different view, and therefore these tenders will be irregular. That is the risk. And I do agree with you, but the position that we want to recommend to council is to stick with the one that is guided from provincial and national government, because we've been in forums with all these platforms, and ultimately that is the least riskiest legal opinion that these bodies of government advocate to municipalities. And then the question is, what would be the basis for us to take a different view? Because we might get a legal opinion, but it might be challenged by our own national government. If we were to write to the lawmakers to say, can you support us? They might say, how can we support you because you went against us?
Amen. And then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Speaker. I just want to separate 2 things. One is the policy making part, which is what we're bringing to council to say, there's this guidance for you to make policy, correct your policy position. Council is done with its work once it has corrected its policy position. Now the committees of council, or the bid committees that are empowered to make those decisions, because if you look at it, the decision to withdraw or not to withdraw a tender is a decision of someone else. It's not a decision of council, because you might be threading to the other side. So council cannot say withdraw these tenders or do anything. It can say this is our policy position, and the people that are employed to implement policy must then be guided by the Constitutional Court decision, and the owners of the legislation and the owners of the MFMA is National Treasury. And therefore, even the AG cannot come and say, but remember, AG does not make the law. They judge you in terms of what the owner of the law says. So once council is clear on its policy position as guided by the Constitutional Court, you've done your work. The rest is the people that sit in those bid committees to follow what the Constitutional Court says. Thank you, Speaker.
Alderman Gerik and then the Deputy.
Yeah, just the last point on this, Madam Speaker. The incorrect or wrong awarding of tenders, again in inverted commas, under the old arrangement may have administrative and political implications for all of us. it is important to understand there are political implications if a tender is awarded incorrectly, whether it's been justified by national or by provincial, it's immaterial. I would advise or request you to most probably procure or get a legal opinion, place it on record. It's not up for discussion, but just to make sure so that we have a reference in case we are challenged. Because these things are coming up as much as we are silent and we want to be smart here today. These things are coming up in elections and they're going to ask us, why did you award that tender to that guy and that guy couldn't get it and so on. So it's going to be safer for us, Mr. Jan Willem, through the speaker to get that legal opinion. You can most probably distribute that legal opinion afterwards through the office of the municipal manager, whatever, but as long as we are covered, because there will be implications. And then there is nothing wrong when you challenge national government. There's nothing wrong. National government is not the alpha and the omega. We see on a daily basis in the Supreme Court of Appeal and all over how national government and provincial governments are losing court cases because of a wrong legal strategy. So if we differ, we differ, but we need to clarify it. Thank you, sir.
Deputy,
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, to the Chief Financial Officer, the Constitutional Court has made a ruling. That ruling is now law. It must be applied. My question is, and although I've been covered mostly by the municipal manager, thank you very much, my way of thinking as well. Are there anything uncertain about the ruling of the Constitutional Court as far as how to the route forward? Because that's what needs to be applied, the ruling of the Constitutional Court. As long as we adhere to that, we've got nothing to worry about. Thank you, Speaker.
Councillor Chaba,
Thank you, Speaker. For me, as a, and for that matter, for us as policymakers, I think it's critical that we understand if there's gaps and risk, this is where we ought to be getting that information. So that we are able, if these policies, there's got those risks and those gaps, yourself, you advise us. Because ultimately, we are the ones who are going to be responsible for these policies. Hence, we are sitting where we are sitting. To say if there are uncertainties, then you must be able to go and get the advice so that those gaps and those uncertainties are taken away. It can't be that we're gonna do policies and then yet we are feeling that there are gaps and risks. And we say, no, go ahead. Because then it means already the implementation of that policy is going to have a challenge for those people who are going to implement. Because the risk that now we are being told, we are saying that there are those risks. So for me, is that we need to ensure that we close the gaps of risk. And that is why we are here, to do those policies and to close those gaps.
Alderman Gericke.
Speaker, lastly, the ruling of the Constitutional Court is not in dispute. We don't have the power to dispute it here. That's the apex court. That's the ultimate. It's done. It's over. So we're not discussing that. We're discussing those tenders that were in limbo, in transit. The judgment is silent or different. They got a different opinion, but that is the issue here. I mean, we have minds to argue. We have solid, healthy brains to understand our legislation and our constitution. In fact, we fought for this democracy. This is why we know where we're going to. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Speaker, can I propose then, if the House agrees, that the Chief Whip through the Speaker to the municipal manager to the CFO, that the CFO gets the legal opinion on the records about the silence of the judgment of the limbo, those tenders in limbo or in transit. Let us just understand, we don't need to make an issue about it. You can just place that on record. That's basically it. The Constitutional Court judgment is not in dispute. Thank you, sir.
Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would then propose that we adopt the recommendations as per page 6 and 7, number 1 to 4. Thank you.
Meyer.
I just want to put a rider. The more information, the better as well. But there are legal opinions for free. There's SALGA and there's other institutions.
Speaker, sorry, that is fine, for free, as long as we have a legal opinion on record. This is my proposal. Thank you.
Alderman De Vries? Maya?
Now then I would second the proposal by Councillor Barker. With that rider for the officials to do.
With what Alderman Gericke is.
Yes,
saying.
with Alderman Gericke's rider.
Yeah, I must just get, is it now the 5th recommendation? So can we go with the recommendation as amended? The advocate next to me did make the notes. Thank you. Councillors, we are proceeding to the next item. And that is item E1, where we've all got an interest in. It's on page 137, 134, my apologies, up to 155. Any questions? No. Councillor Lechaba, press, is it? Councillor Lechaba?
Yeah, this one is a difficult one. We note the report or the circular, Honorable Speaker and Council. However, it is very unfortunate that we, as the Council, in the time that our people are in dire strain, in terms of the difficulties of life that they are having, the petrol increase and everything else, and ourselves we are getting an increase. It is unfortunate. We have to say it because our country is in a difficult space. Our people are in the difficult spaces. For us as policymakers to want an increase, and yet our own people out there, they are having the difficulty of life. It is a difficult one for us as the opposition.
Maya?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Councillor Lechaba is correct in terms of the economic circumstances and everything that we all are experiencing. But I just want to remind councillors as well that we do have the right to donate our increases as well. Each and every one of us can make that individual decision. Thank you.
Any other comments, councillors?
Yeah.
Councillor Lechaba?
Yeah, Councillor, yeah. No, we understand that, but we have to take it on a conscious level, that what we are doing is that we should be in solidarity with our people at this moment in time. Our people are in poverty. That we cannot take away. Our people, there are unemployment, there are a lot of things that is happening. So all we are saying that to have the increase is the unfortunate time. We've got to understand that as councillors. It's very unfortunate because our constituencies, this is not the thing that they will enjoy. We understand that we can donate and we will be able to do that. But as a council, let's have that in conscience of our people.
Elder lady?
Yes, Madam Speaker, this is a very sensitive issue. Council hasn't had increases for the last 3 or 4 years, I think, if I haven't got it wrong. We all know the dire straits that our communities are, but you know, the powers that be, I'm so glad that the Guptas was at least going to sort of come to book for what they've done in this country, because it's not because of our doings that we are in this trouble and that we are in this terrible dire strait and in this mess in this country. So I would really like to see that there are councillors that really work very hard. We know that councillors are basically the ones that you are there for your community. Everybody knocks on your door when they have got problems, and your salary is not your own at the end of the month. because you keep on sharing every day as far as your community work is concerned. And I really think there are councillors that definitely deserve this 3%. It's only a little bit, it's only 3%. But we really, some of it really do deserve it because we've been working very hard regarding that. So I want to say that please can we adopt the recommendations as on page 134 and 135. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Chair.
Alder Lady Kratzinger. I don't know who is going to speak there. You're sharing a mic. Councillor Lambajin.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. Mine speaker, thank you very much for all the other speakers. Page 6.3, that the financial implication speaks of there was an amount or percentage budget, 5% was budget for councillors for recommendation for this period. And now there's been approval for 3%. Now, my question or what I'm asking is maybe if we can make use of this 2% that is also part of this whole package, maybe I'm looking to capacitating our councillors, use of, like in training, those type of things for council. Since this new terms just started, we have new councillors and stuff. I'm just putting it there, maybe for those who are the people that decide on this. Thank you very much.
Is that legally possible? Amen. The councillor wants us to use the whole amount that has been budgeted for. But the 3% for increases, if I am understanding him correct, and then the other 2% for something else. Naya?
Thank you, colleagues. Madam Speaker, I don't want us to conflate matters. Because anyway, the budget, sometimes you under budget, sometimes you over budget, and you rectify that in your adjustments. So those things will suffice in the adjustments. Thank you.
Did you switch off your? There's another mic on somewhere. You can press Emin.
Must I speak? Oh, okay. I thought you were looking for a legal opinion, Speaker. But Speaker, the provision was for 5%. So there's a savings actually in the salaries budget. So you can adjust that and use it any benevolent way, council so wishes, if that decision must be made. Thank you.
Councillor Barker. Okay, then you must switch off your switch off.
The Speaker, I think that we must look then not in this meeting, but the saving is, I think we did under budget in terms of capacity, and then we will gladly in our committee through your office look at that and make a proposal to council as the training committee. Thank you.
Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I then would like to second Alder Lady Kratzinger on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we then go with the recommendation?
Sorry, I thought it in lightness, I thought it was going to second me now.
So can we go with the recommendation as it is on page 134, 1, 2, 3, and 4? Councillors? Councillors, please don't expect just increase with your next salary, because if you read the recommendations, there are still processes. Please, so don't phone Jan Willem and ask why did we not get our increase. We still have to wait for the MEC, and only after that we will get our increases. So councillors, that brings us to the close of the open part of our agenda. There's no other items. This meeting is now adjourned, and then we will start immediately after that with the continuation of the meeting of the 27th of May. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.